Welcome to the announcement of the Student Peace Prize for 2021. My name is Thomas Jedebo. I am the leader of the Student Peace Prize, and I will be your initial speaker tonight. Tonight's program, after I'm done talking, Sunniva Folgen Høiskar, the leader of SAIH, the Students and Academics International Assistance Fund, and the leader and representative from the Peace Prize Committee, tasked with choosing the laureates, will come on stage, and she will announce the laureates and share the committee's decision. We will then show a video from the laureates, and for 15 minutes you will hear the winner present themselves and their circumstances. The video will conclude the announcement itself, and we will move on to a panel discussion organized by Samfunnets debattkomité. The panel will consist of Sunniva Folgen Høiskar from SAIH and the Peace Prize Committee, Henrik Syse, Vice Chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, and Gro Lindstad, General Secretary of Focus and member of the Peace Prize Committee. The panel will be moderated by Jakob Osteid. The Student Peace Prize was founded in 1999 and has since been awarded every second year to a student or student organization working to promote peace, democracy, and human rights. It is a national prize and is awarded on behalf of almost 300,000 Norwegian students. It's a prize for students, by students. The prize exists as a collaboration between ISFIT, the International Student Festival in Trondheim, SAIH, the Student and Academics International Assistance Fund, and NSO, the National Union for Students in Norway. The collaboration is managed by the Secretariat for the Student Peace Prize. As of now, there are 11 existing laureates, and tonight we will reveal the 12th. We have a diverse group of former laureates. They come from Myanmar, Colombia, East Timor, Croatia, South Africa, and many more. They have fought for democracy, independence, access to education, against oppressive regimes, for rights for minority ethnic groups, and the list goes on. They have been imprisoned, tortured, raped, and killed for their struggles to make the world a better place. A perfect example of this is the 2015 laureate Ayat Al-Kurmesi from Bahrain. She was brutally arrested, imprisoned, and tortured by the authorities. Her crime was performing a poem at a pro-democracy protest criticizing the regime. She was later forced to apologize on national TV to the king and the prime minister. Ayat was deprived of a fundamental human right, the freedom of speech. I also want to highlight ACEU, the Association for Colombian University Students, the 2005 Peace Prize laureate and the last organization to win the prize. They were awarded the prize for their work to preserve public universities and for their non-violent engagement in the conflicts in Colombia. They continued on, despite the dangerous situation in the country, in a civil war, and several of their members were arrested, tortured, and killed. They are still active today, promoting a broad number of issues, including verifying the agreement between the government and the FARC. The Student Peace Prize, to me, is the acknowledgement that we as Norwegian students have a country and circumstances that are working for us. Not all students around the world do. We have the resources, and we have a duty to speak up. The prize is not meant to be a simple tap on the back, job well done. It is meant to be a sincere effort to help, promote, and protect students fighting for their rights and showing them that they are not alone. Before I welcome Sunniva to the stage to announce the winner, I want to preface a bit of how we got here. On the 31st of January this year, the nomination committee was assembled. It consisted of Nistrin Kalaf, Oda Nissen, Øystein Lekve, Maika Marie Godal Dam, Johanne Geisler, Marte Nygaard Lind, and Marie Sivertsen. They made a great effort to collect the nominations, reaching out to almost 400 organizations, universities, politicians, and others around the world. They have filtered and researched all nominations, resulting in a written report with 5 candidates, all qualified and deserving of the prize. I want to thank the nomination committee for their dedication and commitment to the work. The report was finalized and handed over to the Peace Prize Committee by the 31st of July. On the 11th of August this year, the Peace Prize Committee gathered at the National Library in Oslo. I was waiting outside, nervous and as anxious as I've ever been. Now, 2 months later, I hope you are all feeling the same as we welcome Sunniva to the stage to announce this year's winner of the Student Peace Prize. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. So, my name is, as you've heard already, Sunniva Folgen Høyskar. I am the president of SAIH, the Norwegian Students and Academics International Assistance Fund. And I have been lucky to lead the Peace Committee this year. I am honored to deliver this speech for you, also for those of you following on stream. Because with the Student Peace Prize, we celebrate the vital role students play in society. The hours of after-lecture meetings, activisms, the demonstrations, and the friendships. What brought so many of us here today? My life of student activism has consisted of pizza, poster writing, and the occasional beer. As a student activist in Norway, I am super privileged. And so occasions like the Student Peace Prize matters greatly. I have not felt tear gas or had to worry about the safety and health of my friends. I have never had to choose between activism and education. With the Student Peace Prize, we shine a light on the life, heroics, and circumstances of student activists in other corners of the globe and stretch out a hand of solidarity. But I know you're all very excited to know who the winner of the 2021 Student Peace Prize is. So with no further ado, I will read the full decision of the Peace Committee. The Peace Committee has been led by me and has consisted of the following expert members: Christian Borch, Jon Peder Egenes, Hilde Restad, and Gro Lindstad, and the following student members: Joachim Børli, Tilde Birgitte Dahlberg, Herman Sigrud, and Emma Bø. And on behalf of all Norwegian students, the Peace Committee has decided that the Student Peace Prize for 2021 is to be awarded to Metu LGBTI+ Solidarity from Turkey. Metu LGBTI+ Solidarity is a student group located at the Middle East Technical University in Ankara, Turkey. They are awarded the prize for their brave, substantial, long-term work for a diverse society and an inclusive education for all. This takes place in a Turkey that has become more repressive for human rights activists and LGBTI+ persons. The committee hopes that through receiving the prize, Metu LGBTI+ Solidarity will get increased attention and support and keep inspiring others with their work. The group has worked for LGBTI+ persons who experience suppression in Turkey since they were founded in 1996. They have, among other things, held weekly meetings for LGBTI+ persons on campus, facilitated therapeutic conversations for trans and non-binary persons, and organized larger gatherings such as annual pride parades. Metu LGBTI+ Solidarity do an impressive job for individuals and also engage broadly outside their own group, getting attention from the general student mass. They are well organized and have managed to increase their activities, all the while the context they are working in Turkey is deteriorating. They are able to reach out with a broad spectrum of activities and in many channels to get their message across, both digitally and on campus. The authorities in Turkey have been tightening their grip on freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and curbing human rights. Shrinking space is more than just a notion or a phrase in Turkey. In the current situation, minority groups are especially vulnerable, and the work of Metu LGBTI+ Solidarity is all the more important, but also much more challenging. Many of the members of the group were arrested in 2019 when they were celebrating Pride with a parade on campus. In Turkey, Metu LGBTI+ Solidarity form part of a larger picture of critical actors who dare to oppose the human rights breaches carried out by the authorities. We hope their courage can be an inspiration to other organizations and also have an effect and gain attention more broadly in the Middle East region. The awarding of the Student Peace Prize to Metu LGBTI plus solidarity will also contribute in shedding light on the global anti-gender movement and the systematic efforts carried out both globally and locally, for example in Turkey, to reverse the rights of LGBTI plus persons and women. Organizations such as Metu LGBTI plus solidarity are in the forefront to combat these trends and create awareness in society. The committee wants to highlight how the work of Metu LGBTI plus solidarity contributes to reach the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 4 on the right to education for all. An education that is not inclusive to LGBTI plus persons, or a campus in a society where LGBTI plus persons fear violence or harassment, means that that goal is not reached. What makes Metu LGBTI plus solidarity's work so impressive is their different ways of working. They function as a vital support apparatus for LGBTI plus persons at the university, while at the same time doing information work and changing attitudes on campus and in society in general. This work is essential in order to reach the goal of leaving no one behind, a central agenda in the UN Development Goals. The Peace Committee for the Student Peace Prize hope the prize will contribute to support Metu LGBTI plus solidarity in their future work for inclusive education and human rights for all in Turkey. The committee further hopes the prize will contribute to increase attention around the global backlash on LGBTI plus rights and the continuously worsening situation for human rights activists in Turkey. Metu LGBTI plus solidarity is an inspiring organization, and we hope awarding the Student Peace Prize will give them increased attention and support in Turkey and globally, so that their work and their ability to use diverse work forms and platforms can inspire others. The committee finds Metu LGBTI plus solidarity a worthy recipient of the Student Peace Prize 2021 and believes their great work across societal groups, platforms, and also with the current restraints of the COVID-19 pandemic will continue and become even more important, both in Turkey and in the whole region in the time to come. That was our official decision. I'm not going to keep you for long because we are very lucky to have a video from the winner to show you, but I want to dwell a bit on the importance of this prize and its winner. When I started university, Turkey was a country that was heading in the right direction, possibly becoming a member of the EU, and the human rights situation was improving. That is only 5 years ago. And do you know what that means? That means that Metu LGBTI plus solidarity have been part of these positive developments, and then they have been part of the drastic turn to today's situation. It tells us all that rights fought for and won can be lost again, unless guarded and kept visible. Turkey today is nothing like the Turkey I learned about in 2015. And Turkey today is probably nothing like the Turkey Metu LGBTI plus solidarity imagined when they started their work in 1996. During Corona, we have seen the pandemic affecting marginalized groups and women. All eyes were on Turkey after the murder of student Pinar Gultekin by her boyfriend sparked a global social media campaign focused on femicide. Crisis harms those whose society cannot protect properly harder. They need support, visibility, and accountability. They need organizations such as Metu LGBTI plus solidarity more than ever. This pandemic has been tough on civil society, in Turkey and all over the world. As all eyes are turned to the global pandemic, societies that lack democratic structures or that have leaders who have their own definitions of power use get the opportunity to put forward new laws and measures that violate human rights. In Turkey, one example is the attempt to pull out of the Istanbul Convention, a legal framework to protect against violence against all women and girls. This prize comes at a time when all that Metu LGBTI plus solidarity are fighting for is under attack. I wish it were under better circumstances that we were awarding a Student Peace Prize to an organization working for LGBTI plus issues. Because recently, it has seemed that everything was moving in the right direction when it came to LGBTI issues. More and more countries legalize gay marriage. They remove old penal codes criminalizing homosexuality. Coming out has become easier all over the world. And people of different gender identities and different sexual orientations have prominent roles in all parts of societies. Norms have changed. Yet today, the anti-gender movement is mobilizing globally, regionally, nationally, and locally to fight against LGBTI rights and women's rights. I find it hard to understand that people can actively decide to engage against other people's rights and identities. But these movements are growing all over the world. For this reason, awarding the Student Peace Prize to Metu LGBTI plus solidarity is so important. Those mobilizing against LGBTI plus rights and women's rights are not only comment section trolls. They are smart, strategic activists. They wear suits, they march in the streets, they are concerned parents groups, and some places they are even presidents. So when they mobilize, so should we. And awarding the Student Peace Prize to Metu LGBTI plus solidarity is one step in the right direction. And now I'm looking forward to hear from them, but first I want to give the greatest congratulations from the Peace Committee to Metu LGBTI plus solidarity on the Student Peace Prize of 2021. Thank you.
Balkan, and this is the Metu campus. I've been an activist for the last 6 years with the Metu LGBTI Solidarity, and the importance of the solidarity is that I grew up in a very conservative household, and for this reason I couldn't come out to my friends or family for a very long time. But when I came to Metu, a friend of mine actually dragged me to a meeting of the Metu LGBTI Solidarity, and after that I became an activist. And I've been doing street activism and workshops for 6 years.
Hello, my name is Özgür, and I'm an activist for 6 years in the Metu LGBTI plus Solidarity.
How did you get started in the organization?
Actually, I wasn't planning on coming to the organization because I was 18 and I couldn't come out yet, and I wasn't open to anybody else. But a friend of mine actually dragged me to the meeting saying that I had to be here. And after that, I saw that this was a great organization and this was a place where I could be myself and talk about the things that are important for me. And that's how I started. And I've been here for 6 years.
When I was in high school, I felt alone because I haven't accepted myself fully, my identity. And at that time, I was watching Gezi protests and I saw the LGBTI groups in the protest, and that was really powerful. And after that, I came to university. I joined the 5th Metu Pride March, I think. And that actually created the same feeling for me, and I felt powerful. And I realized that I'm not alone. And so I could join the Metu LGBTI Solidarity.
What is the main purpose of your organization?
So the Metu LGBTI Solidarity is not a usual student group, but we're more of a family. We try to support each other, create safe spaces for each other, and as such we've been doing different activities. We've been doing film screenings, movie nights, workshops, panels, discussions, and then Pride marches. And we've been hosting Pride Week for the last 3 years, actually. One more important thing is that we've been hosting peer groups where non-binary people and trans people could come together and talk about their issues, talk about their campus and their experience with the educational system. And we've been trying to do these events to create safer spaces for these individuals, especially non-binary people at the campus.
Metu LGBTI Solidarity was established in 1996. It's a really old. It has a really old history, actually, and it is the first university-based LGBTI organization in Turkey. Our aim was to ensure that this campus is a safe place for all LGBTI students, workers, and professors, and we wanted to eradicate the LGBTI discrimination on all LGBTI people.
So this is also, the stadium is also the place where we do our graduation ceremony, where recent graduates actually have a march around the stadium and then stay there. And actually, me and Özgür, we were going to join this graduation ceremony in 2019, but anti-terrorism units raided our homes because there was an anonymous tip saying that we were members of a terrorist organization. And this is the reason that LGBTI activists are fearful, because we are afraid that the government is going to come after us, saying that there are anonymous tips or other things, other evidence against us. But the truth is, they're afraid of the LGBTI people coming out to these graduation ceremonies, marches, events, and they're afraid that we could create a movement that would eradicate their LGBTI phobia.
Can you elaborate on the criminal prosecution against you?
Metro Pride March has a 10-year history as of today, and our Pride March actually started as a protest against the school's rectorship, because the Solidarity back in that day tried to do an event, and the rectorship actually banned the event, and people gathered in one of the gates and then marched inside the campus to the place where the event was going to be held. So that was the first Pride March, and after that we've been doing this march peacefully and with hundreds of people for many, many years. And in 2019 we were going to do our 9th march, and in April 2018, 1 month before our Pride March, actually the Ankara ban was lifted in the courts. And we were really happy about this decision, because we knew the ban was unconstitutional, but now we could say that to the police as well. And the ban was lifted in April, but then coming to May, the rectorship of the university, the administration, actually banned the event a couple of days before the event. And we took this decision to court, saying that this ban from the university's rector is unlawful, but the courts couldn't determine it in time. And because of this reason, the rectorship actually called for Ankara police forces to be inside the campus, and thousands of police officers came inside the campus to stop this march. And our names, the names of the activists were actually served to the police, and the Ankara police forces targeted us specifically, me and Özgür specifically, and the other people organizing the march. And before we could do any kind of marching, before we could even gather the people, the march was attacked by pepper spray, plastic bullets, and a very huge force by the police. People got concussions, people got injuries from the police attack. And our side, the LGBTI activists, were completely peaceful, and we didn't want to clash with the police. Even if we created a peaceful march, and even if there was no ban, police still attacked us. And we were the first ones to get arrested by the police, because me and Özgür's names were given to them, and we were targeted specifically.
Bizi durduramaz, gözaltılar, bizi durduramaz.
And we were taken to the police station, but the crowd still gathered around the campus, and actually at one time it was 600 people attending the march. So people gathered in different places, and they read press releases, and then they held up rainbow flags for hours on end, which was one of the biggest marches in the campus around the country. And there was 22 people that were arrested, 22 students, and then 1 academic staff member was arrested as well, a professor of ours. And these people were taken to the police station and released that day. And a couple of months later, a criminal investigation started for 19 people, including the academic staff member and us specifically. And this criminal court case has still been going on. And we had 3 hearings. The next is going to be on 10th of December.
At the day of the 9th Metro Pride March, even our march has not started, because I remember that it was 1 p.m. and there was just a rainbow flag, 1 rainbow flag and a tent, and the police entered the campus and they circled the 1 tent and the 1 flag, and they asked us to lift it. So we have lifted, because it was too early actually, and after that a lot of people gathered to march, because we knew that that was our right. And at 5 p.m. the police has started to attack us, and they used tear gas, They used jobs, they used plastic bullets on us. And I remember that one person, he was screaming like, "I cannot breathe," and the police kept going, pressing him to the ground. And that was really horrible. And 22 people has arrested, one student and one academic has arrested, and they took us to the police station. And of course, I wasn't in the campus, but I heard that our friends hasn't stopped. They kept going protest the police force, the police violence actually. And after that, they came to the in front of the police station, and they supported us. They have supported us, and they chanted, and that felt really powerful. Even we got into custody. After that, we are released at the night, and that wasn't the end. Actually, the police forces should be carried to the court, but despite that, we have been charged, and now we are in the court. But I believe that will be a really huge win to all of the LGBTI community if we win the case.
What does winning the Student Peace Prize mean to you?
So in the last 6 years, I've noticed that our civil liberties are not being respected by the police, by the administration, but by all of the people that we come across. The problem that we have is that we are an LGBTI rights group and we have a vibrant community here, but we cannot do all of the events that we're trying to do without this kind of a safe space for us to be created. And I've been working with the Solidarity for 6 years and working in all different kinds of ways, doing meetings, doing workshops, working with academic staff members, working with even the police to create a safe space for us. But knowing that we're in Turkey and knowing that the situation can change at any time, it's really good to see that the international community is coming together to support us and support the cause that we lead. Because we know that we're doing our best for the peace, and we're doing our best for the students that are here and also the people around the country. Because we know that these kind of activities that we do in our campus have wide-ranging consequences for the LGBTI people around the country. And I know that there are 16, 17-year-old people that are just going into the university exam, and they need some kind of support, and they need their university experience to be LGBTI friendly and a safe space. And that's what we're trying to create, and that's why winning this prize actually congratulates us in this kind of a way. And we know that our work here is not done. We know that the country still needs a lot of support, and we are going to be having a very difficult time in the next couple of years. And there's been attacks against us from the ministers, from different government organizations, from the police, from different places. But we know that the community is strong. And this award actually is a more powerful tool for us to take back to the country and then do our activism with much more enthusiasm.
It means a lot, actually, because I see the future of LGBT activism in Turkey. Now we are struggling. We are facing with a lot of problems. Police is attacking us. The government is using a lot of things to keep us silent. But that kinds of things actually give us power. And we feel like the international solidarity is with us. If we look up to the couple of last years, we see that the hate crimes are rising. The political pressure to LGBTI NGOs, the LGBTI initiatives is rising. The bans are putting, they use extra force, they use a lot of stuff to keep us going. Now we have to be more resilient than before to overcome these situations. And I know that our community will. A lot of people ask us, why can you keep smiling? And I tell them, okay, we are facing these situations, but this is not our history. Our history is based on celebrating who we are. And we will keep doing that. Despite they are attacking us, they use a lot of things, we will keep going smiling, actually. Because of that, we use a word that comes from Lubunja, which is a language that the LGBT community use in Turkey, gülüm. We kept going smiling, we kept going gülüm.
Welcome back to the announcement of the Student Peace Prize Award. First of all, we'd like to congratulate Metu LGBTI Plus Solidarity for winning the award for 2021. Their work is very important. And now we're going to do the post of the program, which is the panel. So we'd like to discuss some other aspects about the award, about their work, and also Turkey. So I'll just start by asking you just a very introductory question. On a very basic level, why do we give out these types of awards? So Suni, would you like to start as the leader?
Yeah, well, I just gave the whole speech on that, but I think there are very many different reasons to do it. I think one of the most important is to give attention to important issues around the world, to make people aware, because we know that sort of more awareness also leads to maybe sometimes someone who is in a position to change something is also made aware of something. So I think that is important, awareness, and also motivation. A lot of the people who get these kinds of awards work in extremely difficult circumstances. And they work very, very hard, and they might not get all that much feedback in their day-to-day activism. So I think it's really important also to motivate people to keep going when it gets tough.
So the basis is recognition, basically, of work.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Henrik? Are you?
Very well put. You should become a member of the Nobel Committee.
Well, I mean, if it's open.
there you see. We'll see. First of all, I guess I have to just add a disclaimer that, of course, I'm not here as a member of the Nobel Committee. I don't speak on their behalf, but of course, I'm happy to take with me some of the experience from that work and from other work. I think you put it very well. I often think of peace prizes and similar prizes as sort of torchlight or flashlight that you can point towards something. If you come into a dark room, you don't know what's there. You know, you can't see what's important and what's not important. Is there anything we should be especially aware of here? And with such a prize, you have this opportunity to actually flash that light on something and say, you may not be aware of this, but this is actually important. And I think we need that in our world because there is so much grabbing our attention. There is so much going on. So we need help to see the things that we otherwise don't see.
We need help to focus, basically. We could do that. Guru, would you like to add anything?
No, I totally agree. I think in addition to that, I mean, with the video that we've seen and what's been spoken, these are students, and this is an organization that is threatened by the government, by the university, and by others because society, in a way, seems to feel threatened by people being allowed to love whoever they want. And I think by giving such a prize, no matter who we give it to, we also provide them with, I mean, one thing is more attention, but also with a little more safety. Because you take that torch and you shine it into a dark room, and you shine a light on the organization, on the people, and it becomes more difficult for the government and the police to arrest them, because then everyone's watching.
So attention is going to help them a lot, basically. Yeah. I just want to ask you as well, giving out this prize, is it more of a symbolic gesture or is it an instrument of change?
I think prizes, if it's the Nobel Peace Prize or the Student Peace Prize, it gives attention and it's important. It's more than a gesture. It shows that human rights are universal.
And I guess you can look upon it as a sort of symbol, but if you use symbols rightly, they also grab other people's attention. Another image that I often have in my mind is the ability to open doors. No, so you knock on the door and people say, we don't recognize you. Why should we open the door to you? Well, this is an argument to
we have
open
this
the door.
prize, basically. We have some recognition.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing, but I also want to go back to what Gro said about safety. I think that's also something that's, I mean, it's symbolic, but for these people, this can also actually be something that keeps them safe. We know in many cases internationally, when student activists get international attention, it makes them harder to kidnap. It makes them harder to put in jail. And I personally know student activists who have told me that, thank you for sort of creating attention around my issue. Yes, I was brought to jail, but this time they didn't torture me. So for many, this can actually, I mean, it's not change in the sort of going forward kind of change, but it's very vital that some of these prizes sometimes are actually able to give some protection. And often these are people who need that kind of protection and who deserve that kind of protection.
And if I may just add one more thing connected to this prize, because I've been fortunate enough to be both here in Trondheim for the ISFIT Festival and also meet former laureates. And if you look at Hajer, who got the prize, it actually gave her an added platform. She is becoming a global rock star, to put it in that frame, and has had enormous importance on the work that she does on youth, peace and security.
It's a great platform to have as well. I just want to add to the audience on stream. We will monitor the chat. So if you have any questions you'd like me to ask, just put them in the chat and I'll see them. I just want to ask you, because you've both been touching on security, with more attention, will the group be put under more scrutiny by the government, or will more people rally around the cause? Which effect will dominate?
You never really know, do you? It can go both ways. And I have to say, as a member of a peace committee, this is something that I'm very grateful to the nomination committee about, because they do proper vetting of the candidates. Actually asking this question, because there are probably many worthy candidates at the Student Peace Prize out there who shouldn't get it because it would put them at risk. So we have at least been assured in the peace committee that they see this as a positive thing and that they do not believe it will put them at more risk. And then hopefully, in many cases, more international attention makes you safer, but it can also make you a target.
Yeah, generally, I think it makes you safer. I think there's a strong sense that there are many actors who do not want the sort of negative attention there is in actually attacking someone with that sort of recognition. But we do know there are exceptions. And of course, in some cases, you'll have really strong authoritarian regimes who especially want to silence those who can otherwise use their platform. And we have some examples of that, tragically, in the history of the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a risk one runs. One can never be quite sure. But I think the overall experience we have is that it brings a sort of recognition that also brings security.
Yeah, that's a good thing at least. But I want to ask you, you talked a bit about, right now you just mentioned that some of the candidates may not be, they're vetted so that they are they excluded because they can feel there's a danger?
I don't know that because I'm not in a nomination committee, but I guess that could be a possible scenario. I mean, someone from the Student Peace Prize nomination committee would have to answer that and not me. But it is something that we are made aware of in the Peace Committee, that can be a risk and how they consider the risk. So it's something that's part of our decision. And I guess there could definitely be years where that would be a reason not to award it.
I want to ask a little bit about the process. You've both been on the awarding committee. Can you talk a little bit about the process until from the list of 5 names until choosing the winner?
Well, without revealing too much of what internally goes on, we spent the whole day together. We thoroughly went through the candidates we had that were kind of in the final run, and then had thorough discussions on each and every one of them. And on the way to ending up with Metu, we had eliminations that both consisted of nominations that we thought would get the attention they needed from other places than the Student Peace Prize. And we ended up unanimous. There was no, there was no infighting or big discussions on this. I think we ended up, both on the fact that you need to shine a light on LGBTI plus issues in not only Turkey, but the whole region. And that giving the prize to Metu would shine a light on more. It's not far from Turkey to Iran where there's a death penalty. So it's fragile. But it was an interesting day.
Yeah, I also agree. I didn't have a vote, which is interesting. When you lead the peace committee, you don't vote, but you should lead the meeting so that other people end up with votes. So I was very excited to see if there would be a process with voting, because then you would like to actually have a vote. But we ended up with a unanimous decision, and I think it was a very good discussion. Also, one thing were the aspects of sort of where would the Peace Prize matter the most? What could the Peace Prize sort of do for the different candidates, and also sort of looking through them. There are some candidates who are impressive because their situation is so extreme. But I think what kind of also made Metu stand apart from the rest was this consistency and the hard work and how well organized they were and how they worked on sort of very different levels, and that they are, at one point, they are a normal student association, similar to some of the student associations you would find here in Trondheim, where people get together, and as you said, they had movie screenings and they got to know each other, and they were a family for each other. And also, they held this Pride March and were attacked by police and became a national and also international news story. And sort of that ability to work on all these levels and both be such an important support to individuals but also change society, they were a very sort of strong candidate in terms of the whole package, and also the consistency. As a student and having been in student organizations, having a student organization survive from 1996, that's impressive.
That's very impressive.
For those of us who have made reports from year to year, I'm from an organization that's soon 60 years, but we're kind of big. But living as a student organization for 25 years, that's impressive. That shows sort of a level of commitment and consistency that you don't find many places.
Sounds like a solid process, by the way. You want some internal gossip from the Nobel Committee?
Go ahead.
I'm not allowed to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can tell you who drinks tea and who drinks coffee.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, Torbjørn Jagland always uses each tea bag twice, so he's a good man. No, seriously, I think that one of the things you point to, which is true also of the Nobel Committee, and I don't reveal anything by saying that, is that it's hard because you have many good candidates. One of the questions that we often get is, why didn't you give the prize to? And it's important for us to stress that giving the prize to some organization or person is not the same as not giving it to others.
Exactly.
It's just that we can only give it to one, or we can at the most split it between three. So it means that there are a lot of other worthy candidates as well. We don't comment on those, but that's important to remember. So it's not like a competition where you put someone down. You lift someone up, and hopefully by doing that you also lift some of the other who have been nominees up.
Metu LGBTI plus solidarity is based in Turkey, so naturally we'll have to talk a little bit more about the context in which they're given the award. You addressed this a little bit in your speech, but I'd like to just look into that further. So Turkey was once heralded, as you mentioned, as a model country for the Middle East, with accession talks being admitted to the EU well underway. And now they are becoming increasingly authoritarian, with the government cracking down on the free press. What happened? What happened to bring us to this situation now? So you talked about it's only been 5 years.
It's complex. It's very complex. But it's part of something that we are seeing in several countries around the world, where you have a strengthening of what is often called a national conservatism. And on the one hand, there can be many good things about celebrating one's nation and one's tradition. Conservative movements are not necessarily oppressive. Some of them can stand for very good things. We don't have to say that we are putting people into these are good and these are bad. But there is a movement in our world that we see among other places in Turkey, where a lot of this pride that one tries to build up around one's country is used to shut out certain groups or to argue against certain groups. and to also strengthen the power of some groups against others. And that's a very dangerous process because it endangers basic human rights. And I would say in the case of Metu and Turkey, there are two things that are at stake. The first thing is the freedom of speech. The basic right to actually go out and proclaim your opinions, gather others who are similar to you, even if that is controversial. So there could be people who have problems for various reasons with homosexuality. We think that is a strange thing often here, but you know, that can happen. But still you have this freedom of speech. So that's the one side. But then there is something else at stake here too. And that's the right to have your identity. To actually be allowed to say that this is who I am, not just because you have freedom of speech, but because it's important for each individual to be able to be proud of who you are. So both of these things are at stake, and I think in some cases that threatens certain groups who have traditionally had power. This is a gender question, among other things. It's a power
Is it a question of religion in Turkey?
Absolutely.
It can be, absolutely. In several countries it can be. And I think it's interesting because I myself have been part of a discussion within Norwegian Church on questions of gay rights, and I have been on the liberal side. So I know a little bit about the processes that go on, and I know that religion is important to people, but I think in this case it's using religion as a means of power.
As a means of exclusion, basically.
As a means of exclusion.
Sunniva, would you comment?
Yeah, I would just, because I think I agree with sort of those two things at stake, but I think one thing that's special about Turkey, and which I think is also an important aspect of this Student Peace Prize, is also how Turkey, in this sort of conservative turn and in this authoritarian turn, has also clenched down so hard on academic freedom. And normally when we think of academic freedom, we think of like, I want to research this, you say no, and I'm not allowed to publish my article. But academic freedom also involves so that you are allowed without fear of reprisals to criticize your institution and your society. And as students and academics, you're allowed to, that is part of your academic freedom, to actually be allowed to gather, to criticize your institution, to criticize society, and to change the way people think. That's an integral part of academic freedom. And Turkey, this is one of the very sort of systematic things in this change in Turkey, is that they are sort of targeting student activists and liberal academics, going after them with terrorism charges. There's been a purge in Turkish universities, both of students and of academics. Loads of them have had to flee through the Scholars at Risk network, some through the Students at Risk movement program here in Norway. And we've seen at one point there was more than 180,000 students in prison in Turkey.
I just want to ask you to comment on the Student at Risk program, because that's something you do with your organization. Have you any students from Turkey come over?
I am not allowed to say numbers, but I can say that there have been students from Turkey because there's been an evaluation where that's public knowledge. So Students at Risk is a program that SAIH advocated for from the early 2010s and so forth, and it's been a pilot in Norway since 2015. And it's supposed to protect students and give them the opportunity to finish their studies when they are not allowed to in their home country because of their activism. It's funded and run by the government and not us, but we do a lot in the nomination, and it's been kind of painful to see that it's not become less relevant. There are more and more applications and more relevant countries, and we're not seeing a change. And Turkey is one of the countries, when we started the program in 2015, that was right before Turkey sort of had a turn for the worse. Turkey wasn't a country that we saw as a possibility that students would come from. They had universities, liberal universities, student unions. We didn't even consider Turkey as a country where we would have students at risk students. Now there are plenty. And I think that's one very sort of scary thing about Turkey, is this very, very hard attack on students and academics, especially, and this curbing of academic freedom as a right.
I just want to ask you about the development, because there was a failed coup attempt in 2016. How devastating was that for the country? Yeah, please do.
How devastating. Well, I think that it was an opportunity used to clamp down on freedom of speech, freedom of movement, on academic freedom, and on a number of other issues, so that what happened became so much larger, because Erdogan, as president, was allowed to put so many people in prison, journalists, professors, students, or people had to flee. And when something like that happens, first of all, Erdogan got much more power than what he
seized
had.
the opportunity,
And he seized on an opportunity. And the situation has just spiraled since then. One of the things I think is important to recognize here also, in addition to the academic freedom being threatened, is that we also have to see what's called the intersectionality in society, where there are so many layers of each of us. You know, that we're not just one-dimensional. So intersectionally, it's academic freedom, it's sexuality, it's a gender issue, and it's so much more. And it's threatening to, I'll go back to power structures and say it's threatening to patriarchy. And it goes back to that, and with that also comes religion in. And then you have a big discussion going on.
I just want to say a few words about the concept of being liberal, because the way we use it here is not about a certain political orientation, but it's about being open, which is the original meaning. And I think in a good society, you are not afraid of the other, but you are open to the other. You want to listen to the other. You want to see how you can learn from the other. And I think one thing that one sees in Turkey, but in many other countries as well, is this fear of the other. And in many ways, the coup in 2016 was used as an excuse to heighten that fear. Look how dangerous things are.
They had a common enemy to rally against.
So look how they threaten us. You see it in other countries as well, and you have to have some sort of enemy. There are different enemies in different countries. We see, for instance, in several Asian countries now, Muslims being the danger. You can look at Myanmar, you can look at it in India. In other countries, there are other enemies, but you want to say these are dangerous and these are people we should fear. And sometimes the fear comes from something, as with the coup, but it is exploited. It is used. And I think that destroys the very basis of what we need. And I'm glad you talk about the academic freedom as an important part of this, because that's what an education should be, a liberal education, which is once again not a statement on politics or religion, but it's a statement about the openness of how we should dialogue with each other and meet each other.
We've actually got the question from the audience, and the opportunity to ask a question is there. So I encourage everyone who is a viewer to ask questions. So Amalia wants to know, as a Norwegian student, if you'd like to support the METU LGBTI+ solidarity, do you have any thoughts on what would be the way to do it? Is it possible to influence the Turkish government in any way?
That would be great. I think one of the things you can do is to create awareness around the situation of METU LGBTI+ solidarity, like we talked about earlier, but also create awareness about this trend that they are facing. This clash, this clampdown on LGBTI+ rights, because that's not only something happening in Turkey. That's not something happening globally, but that's also something that's happening organized. So rallying against these movements and these sort of, what should I say, we call it the anti-gender movement, but rallying against these changes is something you can do also in Norway. There are people here as well in Norway who rally against LGBTI rights, who believes that this should be removed from schools, and who believes that gay people are out to take your kids and these kinds of things. This is not something that's sort of only in Middle Eastern countries. It's something happening all over the world. So educating yourself on that issue, spreading the word, advocating for it, get engaged in organizations, basically do what they are doing, METU LGBTI+ solidarity, but you can also do it here, and that will also help. But yeah, that's...
And of course, we learned in the old days from Amnesty International that be aware who is actually in jail, who is being oppressed, tortured, threatened. Write letters. Create engagement around these issues.
Yeah, and the part of me that comes in now is the old LGBTIQ activist, which I've been since the early 80s. And I think, first of all, I want to say that we have to remember that changes happen over time. We don't have to go further back until 1972 in Norway, when the law that penalized being homosexual was removed from the Norwegian Penal Code. And so much has happened after that. I think that one of the things that students can do, there are student groups in Norway who are also rallying around same issues. You could do a twinning or do exchanges or things like that, just to raise the attention also among Norwegian students beyond the Peace Prize.
The next question from the audience is Svein, who asks, how can this prize help to put pressure on the anti-gender movement in Turkey and the world as a whole?
That's a very difficult question. I think one thing is that it gives Metoo LGBTI plus solidarity a podium, because I think one of the things that sort of the anti-gender movement feeds on is ignorance. The fact that many people in Turkey will never have met a gay person. They might be that scary person who's going to take your kids, because, that's what they say, and I have never met one, so they might just be like that. It's very easy, if you don't know, to believe these kinds of scary propaganda messages. So I think giving them a podium, giving them the opportunity to talk about their issues, to show that they're not scary, to show that they are right, and to show that the treatment that they've received, for example, from the government, I think that's one important part of combating the anti-gender movement. And I think also sort of being in Norway, I think Turkey is a country where Norway actually has quite tight relations. We have an embassy there, we have loads of trade. So also sort of for Norwegian politicians being aware that this is an issue, this is the prize that we are giving because we see that LGBTI plus students in Turkey are under pressure, could also hopefully be something that is then brought to maybe bilateral talks and so on. I would like to see that happen. It's optimistic, but yeah, I would like to see that happen.
Gro, would you comment?
No, I think that Sunniva is absolutely right. I think it takes more than giving Metoo a platform to change the whole anti-gender movement, because it's big. But I was in Jordan a few years back at a conference, and one of the organizers of the conference doing this was a lesbian, and she was very closeted, but there's a gaydar between. So I was, together with someone else, invited home to her, and she was talking very secretively about the situation in Jordan and saying that, you know what, it just improved because they started writing about us in the newspapers. They write bad things, but at least there's a visibility that wasn't there before. So just having visibility changes things, I think, in any country.
I think it's true. It brings us back to the torchlight again. Also, I'm a great fan of using the institutions that are there. And after all, there are civil society institutions in Turkey that still work and function, and the universities are among the most important ones. So I think encouraging academic exchange, talking to colleagues we have, taking the field you're in, philosophy in my case, and see, are there any professors there that you could write an email to and say, are there things we could do together? And by the way, really care about the development in your country. So trying to use up those opportunities. In some cases, of course, it could be dangerous for those we are writing to. In most cases, in a country like Turkey, that is still, after all, fully possible. We see the same thing, and I'm not saying they're the same situation, but we see the same thing in a country like Hungary, where universities in several cities are using the sort of institution they are to actually speak up, because you cannot shut the whole university down, and you cannot be in every classroom and check what every literature professor is saying, and we have to encourage them to use their free voice.
Though that is something they are trying to do, both in Hungary but also in Brazil. Speaking of the anti-gender movement, this is, for example, it sounds like when you say you can't be in every classroom listening to what everyone says, that is actually one of the things that they are trying to do.
Yeah,
So in Brazil, they're taping lectures to see if professors are talking positively about LGBTI rights and gender. So this is sort of the level it's at, and this is why we also need awareness of the situation. And this is not something that's going to just stop by itself. It's something we need to be aware of. It's something we need to actively combat.
Yep. And it's worth remembering that this can get worse with modern digitalization, because it's possible to actually survey everything they're doing. I remember talking to a professor at Czech University who had been a professor of English literature during the communist days. And he said it was an absurd regime because there was actually someone from the party in every classroom, and they wrote down what they said. And then you think, what could they do like that today? So obviously the dangers are there, which makes it even more important to support the universities as places of free and open discussion.
I want to take us a little bit back to Turkey. The International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Association publishes a ranking of countries based on their respect for human rights in relation to LGBTI+. Turkey is actually placed second to last on this ranking, narrowly beating Azerbaijan. What does that translate to in terms of everyday life in Turkey for someone who is a part of the LGBTI community? You?
It translates to a society where it is extremely complicated to come out, to be open with your families, to be open at a university, which makes Meta LGBTI plus solidarity so much more important because it is a family. I mean, one thing is the protests and the pride marches, but just having somewhere where you know you can go is so important. And it also translates to not being able to visibly show who you love, possibly being thrown out of your apartment, just basic things that we take for granted that are suddenly not there.
And also fear.
Yeah.
And there is, I think that's one thing that that we can't really imagine in Norway, but this fear of attack, of harassment, of violence from your own family, from your boyfriend, girlfriend, from peers, from other students. The fact that that sort of physical violence is not out of the question. That's
yeah, and to just, I mean, not that this is something that is happening a lot, but honor killings can also happen because somebody is LGBTI plus. I mean, we've also, back many years ago, I mean, I met somebody who came from Turkey who was trans and who could not live in Turkey and came to Norway applying for asylum and was, you know, actually got it, which was good, and led a happy life in Norway. But just not to be able to fear for your life is something that we should remember as not something we should take for granted.
We saw the video earlier today, which was quite powerful, and something you mentioned in your speech as well, which I also thought a lot about, was how they talked about their work being a family, trying to create inclusion with people who needed acceptance, basically. So how important is that work in a community where we know that Turkey ranks so low?
I think it's everything. I mean, and this is probably something anyone who's been in a student organization can relate to. If you spend enough hours together, you become a family. But for us, it's something we choose, and it's something that's nice, and you get friends, and it's kind of cozy. But for these students, it's, as Gro said, it's the first place they can be themselves, and it's the first place they can feel safe. And for the rest of us, our student family, I would like to call SAIH, for example, my student family, of course. they are sort of close to you and you like them and you spend basically all of your life with them at some point, but you still have your family that you can rely on, you still have your other friends, you still have sort of the rest that's also there. But when you can't come out to your family, when you can't be yourself out in public, when you might not be able to tell your other friends about who you are, then that family bond becomes so much stronger, and it becomes kind of everything.
Yeah, it's to do with security, as we talked about earlier too, that you protect each other. But it's incredibly important for such a family to get support from other families as well, by which I mean that this movement also needs support from others. And I think we talked a little bit about religion, how we also need a dialogue within religions generally and within Islam especially, where voices who are willing to stand up and protect the LGBTI plus community. Because there are many, but they don't dare say it. But once they come out, you realize there are others who are not the same as we are, but they want to support us. They want to help us. And that enlarges the family when you suddenly understand that there is someone else. And we've seen that, through the ages. Think of anti-Semitism, when there were actually strong people who were not themselves Jewish, who were willing to go out and say, we want to protect the Jews. This is exactly the same in this sort of situation. So we have to enlarge the family.
I have to. There's one added dimension here that we have to keep in mind, and that is that coming out is not something that we do once and it's done. It's something that I keep doing every time I meet somebody I don't know. Sometimes I refrain from doing it because I think that it's not safe, depending on where I travel. Every time you start a new job, every time you meet new friends, it's something that you do, and you have to feel safe. It can be complicated. Somebody I know in South Africa once said to me, what's more difficult, being black or being a lesbian? And I said, no. And she said, well, if you're black, you don't have to tell your parents. So...
Good point.
Yeah, I think one thing I would like to add, speaking of the sort of enlarging the family, which I think is sort of, for me, a very positive thought, is that now we have shown this torchlight on Metro LGBTI plus solidarity, and they're a strong student group, they're a strong family. But what I also see by doing that is that hopefully we have made them visible to many other smaller families in other countries that are even less strong and that are even less visible and that are even less able to be themselves. I bet there are LGBTI plus communities at all universities across the world, also sort of in other regions of Turkey or in the Middle East in general, and hopefully some of them now will be aware of Metro LGBTI plus solidarity. And we know that this is also something that happens across borders, that student organizations help each other, make each other stronger, give each other help and tips. So I also hope that's something that happens, because they truly are a remarkable organization that I hope sort of can inspire other similar organizations to basically do the same.
I want to ask you as well. Meto's work is very, very important in an authoritarian regime like Turkey. How can they evolve from being an organization working mainly with students to become a movement working towards change in the whole country? Is that even something that they should strive for?
I don't think they need to be. I think they're already changing the whole of society. And I think and this is something that I of course believe, being president of a student solidarity organization, is often downplayed. Students are the ones who start conversations in a country. Students are the ones who start rallies and change. And I don't think you need to be a grown-up professional organization to be in order to do that properly. I think in many cases students are more effective because they're not afraid. So I don't think that's something to aspire to not be a student organization. I think being a student organization is one of the finest things you can do in the world.
There's only benefits.
Yeah, and I think it will water out their mission too. I think what they're doing now is so important because they are a student organization and they are a safe haven and they become family when you're a student. Turkey has other LGBTI organizations for grown-ups, who do other work, and also see if they can change society, no matter how difficult that is. And Turkey had a number of organizations just a few years back. I mean, we had, I know, a Norwegian parliamentarian who used to travel to Turkey every year for Pride in Istanbul. And participate in meetings and everything. She's not going there anymore.
Yeah. No, I think also another thing that's a positive thing about a student movement is that not being that organized, not having offices, work contracts, membership lists, and all these sort of more, makes it easier for you to do bold things, such as organize a pride parade in a country where you're not allowed to arrange a pride parade on a campus where you know police will find you. In those cases, it's actually better to not be well organized. I mean, I work with a lot of student unions through my job in other countries, and I mean, them not being organized can sometimes be a true headache in terms of sort of getting emails back and getting reports and stuff. But I mean, in terms of activism, it can sometimes be a very effective work form to be a student organization, simply because you don't have that much to lose when you're not that established.
Do you think that being students makes them a bit more of a target for the regime?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that obviously they are quite visible. That's not because they're students, but because they choose to do what they do, and that's true of the movement in many ways. You know, you want to be visible, and in that ways you can also become a target. But on the other hand, you should also exploit the fact that you are a student in a positive way. The rest of society expects you to say things loudly. The rest of society is hopefully a bit more tolerant towards that. So I think exactly what you said, to exploit the fact that you are a student and that gives you a certain different sort of voice in society.
So, the dimension I wanted to address is that students are often, they're educated, they're interested, they read more about how it is in other countries, more outwards, basically.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, that many students, of course, are internationally oriented. And that means that they can have contacts with and be aware of things that are happening elsewhere and also import that to their own country.
But doesn't that make them an extra liability for the regime?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what we want to be, in the sense that as a student you want to change the society. If we do that together, if we do that through solidarity with each other, we can hopefully balance that with the sort of extra safety and security that a prize like this gives.
I want to ask you a bit about Turkey is becoming more and more of a totalitarian regime.
Well, authoritarian. Maybe totalitarian is going too far for now, but you know.
For now, we'll
for
see. Hopefully not. But why is it a trait in these authoritarian regimes to oppose homosexuality and LGBTI+?
Well, it's partly a question of control. It's, in some countries, a question of religion or certain readings of religion. And it's partly a symbol. I think that you can scare a lot of people by saying, here come some wild people who are going to change everything we hold dear.
So we're back to the common enemy.
Family and mother and father and all these things. So you can use that and say they are dangerous. And the question is, are they dangerous? Are these people threatening our society? Now, but we're using it as a sort of symbol. And I think that's something you see. And unfortunately, you see it increasingly so in a number of countries.
And it's also sort of playing on people's confusion and making them feel safe in their assumptions. I mean, we've all been in that situation where we've wondered how many letters of the LGBTIQ plus are we going to take, and then we get a bit like, oh, how are we going to say this, because now we're meeting someone who's gay. I have to say it right, and you get a bit nervous. That happens. It happens to me probably weekly, and I think that's something because it is complex, and people don't like complexity. People like simple. People like categories: A, B, white, black. Simple. This is the way I've been taught. This is the way it works. People get married. They have kids, and this and that. They want it to be that people want it generally to be simple. Our brain wants categories. Our brain wants shortcuts generally. So, taking on new information, nuancing our view, tackling sort of that the world isn't what we thought it is something that we naturally oppose. So when someone powerful comes and says that, yeah, you're right, this is bad, this is going to change everything. It's not only going to change these few people who are gay, it's going to change you, your children, your society. We're not going to be religious anymore. Western countries are going to change our politics. Because it's kind of something where we are already grasping at straws a bit, and we don't really know how to deal with these things, and it becomes complicated. We get served an easy solution by someone we trust and someone we feel like, yeah, you say that, then it's true. So it's also something about that we don't want the world to be more complicated if we can avoid it.
Good point.
And in addition to that, in a number of countries, you have, let's say, conservative politicians who run on very strict family values, and then use homosexuality as a threat to the family. And I think we have to remember that that is something that is not just done in Turkey or in Russia or wherever. When Norway in 1993 was passing the partnership law, which was the first step to equal marriage, the Christian Conservative Party in Norway and others said that if we pass this law, it will destroy the Norwegian traditional family. So this is a notion that kind of travels from country to country, and we hear the same arguments, whether we're in Zimbabwe or in Turkey or somewhere else. It's being reused, and I think part of what also is being done is we're drawing pictures saying that if you are LGBTIQ+, you are something very different from somebody who is a heterosexual person, when the reality is that the similarities are so much greater than the differences, and everyone just wants to be allowed to love someone, to get married, to establish a family, and in addition to that, being just as boring as everyone else who wakes up and is tired in the morning and gets up and brushes their teeth and goes to work.
Amen to that.
Yes.
I'll add also that one of the reasons why we've had what I would call a very positive development in Norway over the last 20 to 30 years has, of course, been that also within, say, the Christian People's Party or within the church, you've had different voices. It's not been monolithic, and not least that it's possible to be preoccupied with such things as the family and the welfare of children, and be in favor of exactly the things you talked about there. We create enemy images because we feed on them, and then things are not as complex. To manage to explode those, not just from the outside, but also from the inside, is important.
We're running a bit out of time here. I want to ask you, we touched a little bit on this earlier with one of the questions from the audience, but I want to hear from all three of you. There are a lot of students who are very committed to preventing discrimination and social inequality, not just where you live, but around the world. How can you get involved in issues that extend far beyond your own borders? How do you start using that compassion, that empathy that you have?
Be active and sigh.
Yeah, I was going to say that, of course, but I was trying to think of something else to say, so not only...
Well, that's why I said it. I said it. Yeah. But I think it's so important. And in addition to that, I mean, once we get out of this pandemic, go back to doing exchanges. Go and meet people in other countries at other universities and just expand your mind. I think that's that dialogue. And being a student, you know, when I was a student, I was taught critical thinking. And I think we can use that critical thinking also in exchanges to other universities in other parts of the world.
Absolutely. And get to know what's going on. That's an important thing. We're gathered here at the university with students and realize that, you know, the human rights struggle is incredibly important. And many places around the world, they're starting from a very different starting point than we are. and just to become aware of that and the sort of struggles they have. If I can end with a story I used last year at the Nobel banquet. That's what the vice chair does. We give these speeches at the banquet, not at the big things, so only a few people hear it, but the king and queen are there. And I talked about how important it is to realize where you're starting from. And it's a funny story from Ireland, and it has to be told in Irish English. A man is in the village of Ballyboley, and he asks a local resident of Ballyboley, how do I get from here to Dublin? And the local farmer answers, well, if I were going to Dublin, I wouldn't start here. But of course, that's a silly answer, because you have to start there. That's where we find ourselves. And I think getting to know where does the world find itself on these crucial issues of human rights. And today, those of us who've been part of this celebration, I'm very grateful that you invited me. Great to be among you here. We have learned something that we probably knew a little bit about, but not that much, about the struggles in Turkey. Get to know these things and then start your fight from there.
Yeah, I would, of course, echo Gro, join SAIH, but also because, I mean, that's what I did. I wanted to learn about the rest of the world. I wanted to get engaged with students in other parts of the world, and SAIH did that for me. And I think I thought that I was going to do foreign policy, because that was what I was interested in. I thought I was going to learn about other countries' conflicts and stuff. And I mean, I did that too. But I think what has stuck with me, and what I think you have opportunities to do in organizations such as SAIH, but also here in Trondheim in the Student Peace Prize and ISFIT, and is to meet people from other countries and from other backgrounds. And I don't think I realized when I started as a student how much that can shape you and how different we actually are, despite being also extremely similar. So I think you have an open mind and talk to people who are not like yourself is something I think is a good start. And yeah, join an organization. I mean, it's both fun and you actually do something positive.
And you get a new family.
And you get a new
What's not to
family.
like?
And you get pizza. So, I mean, there's only good things.
And the occasional beer.
And the occasion. You normally don't get that. You have to pay for that yourself. But I mean, still, yeah, I would say join an organization. It's never too late.
I just want to go a final round around the table, just leave you with your final words before we end it. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I just want to say that I feel great pride in having been part of the committee that agreed on who this year's winner would be. And I think it is very fitting that Metu LGBTI plus Solidarity gets this year's prize. And I hope they can come to Trondheim, and I want to be here when they come.
Me too. Me too. I guess the one word that I would use is one of the strongest and most important virtues there are, and that's gratitude. I'm grateful to you for having selected this year's prize winner and doing that work. I'm grateful to Metu for the work that they do. And I'm grateful that we have these sorts of opportunities. And I think you're quite right. When the pandemic is over, and hopefully not too long, we can again become even more active in these sorts of exchanges. But I'm grateful that you do it in spite of this. We almost cancelled us coming here because we couldn't have a full audience and everything. We do it anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, don't thank me, because I was just going to say I want to thank the Student Peace Prize, because I think it's been a wonderful experience, both reading the nomination report, having this meeting. I mean, you guys only got to hear about Metu LGBTI plus Solidarity. We got to celebrate 4 other candidates as well. So we've had this sort of influx of what you can do as a student activist, and I think for me that was a lot of fun. And I also agree with gratitude. I want to end on sort of a small call to action, and it's going to sound like I'm doing like a commercial first, but it's for a good reason, because I'm going to encourage all of you to read up a bit on this anti-gender movement, and to read up a bit about what's happening and what oppression LGBTI plus people and also women are facing in the world today, because it's something that we're going to have to toughen up about. It's something we all have to take responsibility to know about and to actively combat in our everyday lives. And that's why I brought this one on stage. This is a very simple way to acquaint yourself with the anti-gender movement and how it's curbing academic freedom. It's a report, and you can find it on SAIH's webpage. And I want to encourage you to read it, because there's a lot of examples of how they work who they are, and also what their reasoning is. And I think we need to know that, because we can't risk them winning, kind of. We have to understand how they work in order to make sure that LGBTI rights, which have been so hard fought for, are not taken away. So I think, I would encourage everyone to read up and do their part in making the world a better place for Metoo LGBTI plus solidarity and others.
Great. That has to be our final word. We've unfortunately run out of time. Before we finish up, I again would like to congratulate.
Yep.
That's the word.
That's the word. That's the word.
Metoo LGBTI plus for receiving the award. And I'd like to reiterate that this is the announcement. We'll be giving the award to the awardee in February. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you so much for being a part of this panel. We've had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Hopefully we've learned something. So thank you and good night.